Good afternoon, everybody. I want to take just a second and go over our agendas for this next couple of weeks on what we're going to be working on, and also reviewing what we have been working on this past year. At this time last year, we were talking about our instructional focus, and our instructional focus was effective instruction. I truly believe that effective instruction lies at the heart of everything we do and has to be the top priority in everything that we look at and try to achieve. If you have effective instruction in your classroom, that is reflected in several different ways here at the school. Most notably, this summer when you worked on your EVOS and everything that's going on, that will be reflected in your Standard 6. It was showing our graduation rates. It is showing our ACT scores. The way you've been working on this throughout this past year has been very closely tied with the implementation of our PLCs, the collaboration that you have with each other, also the trust that you have with members in your department, and how you're able to freely share ideas has gone a long way to having authentic, effective instruction. And I just want to thank you for that and let you know this has been a good year. Now, where do we go from here, and what's been going on, and how do we set our instructional focus for next year? That's the point of our next couple of weeks. First off, we have to set the expectation. Our county has an expectation that we're going to produce college-ready graduates. Whether they choose to go on to college or go to a technical school or enter the workforce, the actual reality of this is we want them to have the opportunity to choose and be part of the expectation, which is having that ability to choose to go to college if they'd like. We achieve that through our research-based solutions. That goes back to Dr. Max Thompson. You remember last week when Mr. Patton gave you a short overview on the high-impact strategies that we have for Max Thompson. That's the research-based solution that we're using to build all this. And our accountability strategies, what are we using to say that we actually understand and we know that we're being effective? And we've been using our QAR process to achieve that. The QAR process that was done by the county in the very beginning, back right after Christmas break, was the catalyst that started this off. We took the information we got from the QAR process, we looked at it, and we said, how can we use this data to better inform our decisions and to drive our decisions in the future? We did that through the help of our instructional leadership team and the administration here, the assistant principals. We were able to develop teams in which a lot of teachers were able to participate in our weekly QAR walkthroughs and actually get to go into other teachers' classrooms and see what's going on and see how we stacked up on what we were doing. We value what we measure, and we chose to measure some things, and I'll tell you about that in just a minute on some of the vocabulary, what we're actually measuring. But this is how we actually came about it, which brings us to our next step, which is our data analysis. We have now had the QAR from the county team did, we have the QAR from our weekly walkthrough meetings, and we have all this data. Now what? That's the question. Where do we go next with this? What we're hoping to see is a manifestation of our high impact strategies. The strategies Mr. Patton told you about last week, we're hoping that the data shows that we are achieving those goals. With that being said, where do we go from here? We're going to use this data from our walkthroughs in two key components. The first key component is going to be the SIT team review of lesson plans. They are meeting today after school, in which I've asked the SIT team members to bring sample lesson plans from everybody's department, and we're going to put them out on the table, and we're going to look at all the different types of lesson plans that we have. And what we're going to see is we're going to compare those lesson plans amongst the different departments. Are we seeing, going back to that effective instruction, are we seeing the collaboration in the PLCs? Is that reflected in the way we plan? If not, the question will be asked, why not? How can we achieve more collaboration? How can we do a little bit better? With that being said, the SIT team is going to be looking at it from their lens, which is planning for effective instruction. How do we set that goal? The department chair members were asked to schedule a meeting with every one of you this upcoming week to get your input on this data that we have collected. With this right here, department chairs will go over to the product that we're going to want you to achieve, but they're going to be walking through a set of processes which you're going to look at this data, you're going to see what was observed, you're going to internalize it, and you're going to offer some suggestions with that. Going on. One of the key problems that we've noticed on our QAR walkthrough is the vocabulary that is being used. Some folks understand the vocabulary, some folks have a little bit of difficulty with the vocabulary. So I wanted to go over a couple of these items real quick with you and just talk about this. The biggest one that we've had the most conversations about is the difference between a learning target and an essential question. I have done a lot of reading on this, and to be quite honest with you, even the research is a little bit ambiguous as to these two terms. But I want to offer this explanation right here. If we can use this explanation and all use it in the same way, it will be absolutely fine, and we can talk on the same kind of language. If you were to think of a large brick wall, the overall structure of the wall, that is our learning target. That is the overarching theme of what we have. This essential question are the bricks in the walls. Those are made up of the smaller ones. And on the form, the rubric that we use that we're looking at, it said, is the learning target posted? Well, the learning target could also be the essential question. You may have a learning target posted. You may have an essential question posted. You may have both of them posted. That's okay. And however, some of the rooms we went in did not always have that. But there was one key component with this learning target that was never unmistakable, and that was, could the students tell you what they were expecting to be learning in there? That is our customer. That is the most important part. They should at least be able to tell us what the learning target and essential question is for the day. Also, we have some other things that come out with this right here, and one of the most important ones, and I've stressed this with the folks on our QAR walkthrough, is we're looking at the students in the classroom. Are they mentally engaged? When we walk into the classroom, are they active participants in the classroom, or are they merely compliant? There are a lot of times we've walked in and we've seen students with the pen in their hand, the pen on the paper, and they're ready to write, and they've completely zoned out. With that being said, they're not mentally engaged, they're compliant. Well, I want to know, in your ability, when you're doing your reflections on here, do you think your students are mentally engaged in your classroom? That's how we're defining that. Also over here, product. What do we mean by product? What are the students producing in class? What is the expected outcome that they're supposed to have at the end of that time that they're doing? And we're also looking at the amount of teacher-directed versus student-directed instruction. I also like to use the word driven instead of directed, because a lot of times we walk into a classroom and we'll see a lot of teacher driving. The teachers are giving lecture, the teachers are giving notes, teachers have a PowerPoint, and the students are basically sitting there copying notes and not really taking a whole lot of investment in their learning. Whereas in some of the classrooms we go into, we see student-directed. We see students engaged in something as small as the think, pair, share groups, or working, going around in stations and doing that kind of work. And what we're looking to see is approximately an 80-20 split. And we can see that 80-20 split in the classroom with the students leading most of the instruction. In order for us to achieve this, it's going to go back to what the SIT team was working on earlier. Have we planned for that 80-20? Also, don't forget our Bloom's taxonomy. All of these things right here are going to be evaluated using Bloom's taxonomy. I placed a copy of the Bloom's taxonomy in your mailboxes for your review, so you can keep a copy of that if you need to go over that. But also, in your planning, are you planning for these upper level questioning and strategies in your classroom? Most of the classrooms, and the teachers do this right here, they focus really well on this because these are questions that we can normally get when we just think off the cuff. Here's where we need to head to in the data. We want to look at this. Are we seeing this in the data? What do you think on that right there? And going on to the last one. Here comes the product. Here's what I actually need you to do. Going all the way to it. For those of you that fast forward this part, this is the spot you need to watch. Here we go. Here comes the data. I want you to use the verbiage from the data set. Remember, the verbiage is that vocabulary we just went over. We want to be talking the same language amongst everyone so that we're comparing apples to apples. Also, the Excel data sets are being sent to your mailbox this afternoon for your review. This is what we're going to be using to analyze. I want you to actually, in your PLC, use some graph paper and come up with 3 major themes that you have gleaned from your data set analysis. Being that said, I want you to have at least 2 points of data to justify what you think some of the overarching themes are. I want 3 on the chart paper, and I want you to be prepared to bring 1 of those to the faculty meeting to discuss and share out with the group. That's where we get the best ideas going to come out. What's going to happen is we're going to take all this data information, all this stuff you have crunched together, and it's going to come out into our June SIT team meeting, in which we're actually going to be speaking about our instructional focus for the next school year. The SIT team is going to take this information of what you see as our greatest needs, our biggest areas of improvement, And that's going to focus us for next year on where we're going to go educationally and how we're going to achieve our instructional focus. Thank you for listening to this message, and we'll see you next week.